lower left-hand corner, our blue Zerg player playing for Alpha X. This is RAGNAROK.
And top right from Team GP, he's going to be your Protoss into the red trunks. It's Prince.
Well, it looks like we're going to get ourselves a little bit of a setup here. I actually kind of like how Prince handled this. He actually scouted that third hatchery from the ledge. I guess that's something that I figured would be visible, but like I haven't really ever thought about it. But the moment I saw it, I was like, oh, that's brilliant. It's a good play.
Yeah, and the interesting thing about Prince is that he, like every player I think who has not yet to really find their form. This was the same with Creator for a while. He has his ups and downs, and especially in ZVZ, I think at the beginning of this year actually was in some pretty good form in his Zerg versus Zerg. Playing like in the Team Liquid Map contest, beating a lot of the European Zergs like Rattata and Bly, taking down True, Biel, even in an Alpha X event, managed to take down RAGNAROK in a best of 5 3-0. However, in the past month or two, that has very much kind of started to flip on its head, dropping series to, you know, I mean, the people that you'd expect him to. Dark, Laser, Rogue, DRG. You know, these are all Zergs that are very, very good at this matchup, and also in very good form at the current moment.
Well, I think a lot of what makes that win-loss cycle interesting to follow is just the types of builds that Prince is going to utilize. So in this series, we'll have to get some good looks at what Prince decides to do for this one. But it is going to be a Twilight Council, and he's burying it way back behind. I mean, this is almost like DT level bury.
And definitely doesn't want it to be scouted. We'll see what the upgrade is going to be. I mean, potential for Resonating Glaives on this map. You force the natural base to be put at the third location, so is an option. Looks like Prince is going to get the Warp Gate. I mean, adds on an Adept. We're going to see if that gas ticks over 100 and he doesn't start up Glaives, and obviously it will be going towards the Blink, but there we go. Resonating Glaives on the way, and it's been a while since I have seen a Resonating Glaives game in PvZ.
Yeah, I guess we were talking about it with Astrea and DRG, that it was a possibility to see that come into play, and right now we are going to get it. Well, I mean, this was the build. This was the build for PvZ for quite some time, and there's a reason for it. It's very strong, and as you already alluded to, when you force your Zerg player opponent out to their third base location for their second base, you make it a little bit more difficult for the Zerg player to establish their creep spread, to get things anchored down and in position, and you open up a giant avenue here where you can utilize those adepts to harass in multiple different locations and find as much lethal damage as they possibly can. So now it is going to be a Warp Prism out. There are already 4 adepts, but RAGNAROK has this spotted and immediately is going to respond here. He's got 16 Lings on the way. There is a Roach Warren, and Prince is going to be coming in with his own set of damage, but look at this. He's already got a plan B in mind.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the Adepts aren't enough. He also wants to add on the Dark Templar Shrine. Now, there is an Overlord that is very, very close to it. If that moves even an inch to the right, we'll be able to see it, but Spore Crawlers are already on the way. I mean, RAGNAROK is preparing in case of any cheese here. I think he's extremely confident in his macro, and so doesn't want to risk anything as the Adepts are going to come on. And mind you, this is a 2-base all in here from Prince. The Shades are going to bait, but actually commits on into the main base here. That seems like a really risky move. Felt like the third was very open. He's now going to try and take the fight. There's lots of Lings here, though, for RAGNAROK. Not a lot of Roaches, but if you find this round, then does that really matter? It's out towards the third base, and Prince just has to get on out, and it feels like this opening so far, well, this is not getting any damage done.
Oh, I actually really love this by Prince. Prince is trying to bait RAGNAROK far away from his main base or his natural expand, because he is going to have access to those DT warp-ins starting about right now. And that is exactly what's going to be coming into play here. DTs getting warped in. The Spore Crawler is still available, so these DTs have to be careful that they don't get within range, and a couple of them do stray just a bit too far forward. The Warp Prism does get picked off, though, so now it comes down to the kind of harassment that can be done. Spore Crawler is going to get relocated, and all of those DTs get picked off. So great response here by RAGNAROK, and that puts him incredibly far ahead.
Yeah, I mean, losing those Dark Templar is such a massive investment. And as I said, RAGNAROK, he was preparing for everything. He knew that Prince was on 2 bases, and so just got the extra spores. It's only 75 minerals each, and now this has just been a disastrous start for Prince. RAGNAROK, I mean, really has free range. Sure, he's only at 55 workers, does have to replenish his Overlord count as one did go down, but is adding on the additional gas geysers, and pretty soon he's going to be able to go into a very, very large roach swell, and I imagine is going to try and knock down that 3rd base.
Yeah, so a strong opening for RAGNAROK. How does Prince respond, though? I mean, he is starting to get his own upgrade path taken care of. Production now starting to go down. Looks like 4 additional gateway being warped in. But, yeah, I guess it is on the heels of a pretty decent probe production for him at the 3rd base location. He has pretty much an entire saturation in the mineral line. He's going to pick up his 5th and 6th gas as well, and he's going to find the tech switch, a robotics bay and a robotics facility going down, so that's going to be 2 robotics facilities to utilize. RAGNAROK, though, with a transition of his own, will be picking up the Spire. So more than likely an opportunity to get into a little bit of Muta play here. He is still grabbing Glio Reconstitution, so I don't think this is going to be full Mutaling Bane as it is a Protoss opponent. But having the opportunity to go into some air units when you know that your opponent hasn't built that Stargate just yet, great opportunity to take advantage of.
Yeah, I think right now RAGNAROK is going to be pretty happy with his position. Of course, the Blink Stalkers are going to be just a catch-all unit right now for Prince. They're good pretty much against everything but Ling Bane. And the Disruptors coming out, of course, will add some AoE to this army for the Protoss. So despite how bad the opening was, has been able to get himself into a decent position. Actually sitting ahead in the worker count is very, very impressive, but 11 Mutalisks on the way. And Prince right now, I don't believe, has any idea that this is on the docket for RAGNAROK, who's right now just pressing with roaches and trying to distract Prince as much as possible.
Oh my gosh, there was a moment where I thought that this group of Lings was just going to skip right over top of the 3rd base and get sandwiched by this army, and that might have just been lethal damage for RAGNAROK. But I think instead he wanted to get the Mutas out. But a very good, well-placed observer here is going to be able to help spot those Mutas coming out, yeah, and immediately tossing down a photon cannon. There will be some additional support in those different base locations. So the response is going to be there. It's just a matter of whether or not Prince can stop this overwhelming damage from really taking shape. That's going to be, I think, a bigger challenge for him.
And the Muta's now going to be able to press on in. I'm trying to look for some damage onto the Cyber Core. We'll have to back up as one of them gets very, very low. And you see, right now, RAGNAROK has just set up armies on each flank. He's ready pretty much with a plan, no matter what happens. If Prince pushes on the right side of the map, RAGNAROK has the Roaches and Ravagers on the left, and vice versa. Meanwhile, the Mutas are just going to be used to distract and to delay Prince from moving out of his base for as long as possible. 9 more are going to be added on, +1 is also on the way. And RAGNAROK is going to eventually be adding on this Baneling Nest. It is very, very late, though, so you're not going to have access to those Banelings for a while. Of course, against the Blink Stalkers, honestly, Banelings are not the most efficient. Of course, once you get critical mass of them and you're able just to roll through everything, that's a different story. But right now, just the pure Zerglings honestly do well enough. But even their upgrades, very, very delayed, because RAGNAROK has been focusing so hard on just getting up a massive army to help contain the Protoss.
Oh, and he wanted that Cyber Core so bad. He did finally get into it, but that means there's not going to be any additional Stalkers being warped in for the immediate future. And Prince, he took a really long time to try and rebuild that Cybernetics core, so every Stalker that he can pick off here, every Sentry, is incredibly crucial damage that RAGNAROK can kind of double down on. as he is going to pick off every single sentry here. There are no force fields available. There's no guardian shield available. I wouldn't be surprised to see this army just immediately start collapsing onto the bases here of Prince, but these mutas will continue to find additional harassment damage. It's 19 left on the field at this current moment. He is going to try and bait this army out forward. I am just so surprised at the patience here for RAGNAROK, getting additional Zerglings, hatchery here at this kind of exposed base location. But it might just be the upgrades that RAGNAROK is waiting for here, as he is going to be able to grab one of the warp prisms here. A great pickup as RAGNAROK's starting to collapse in with these armies, but instead it looks like it's going to be Prince who acts first.
Yeah, and again, this is the plan. Your opponent moves out on the left or the right side of the map. You come in on the left with the Roaches and Ravagers that have been sitting there this whole time. That means that this third base is going to get absolutely devastated as RAGNAROK. He knows, listen, I don't really want to face this army straight up. It's +1 Blink Stalkers. There's Archons. This is very dangerous, but look at this 59 Banelings. And I don't care how good your Blink Micro is, Prince. I don't know if you're going to be able to stop this as they're going to roll on through the fireworks. Not yet going off. RAGNAROK just kind of, well, there we go. Okay, RAGNAROK. There we go. Yeah, you just find damage, you know. He's just walking the Banelings in a circle as they explode on unit because he can do that. He doesn't have to explode them all at once. The most strange way to make it work, but it does, as Prince is going to get cleaned up. And you know what? If you ever wanted to see what bumper cars with Banelings looks like, that was the perfect example. It wasn't really fireworks, it was more so, like, you know those firecrackers that you throw on the ground?
Oh, yeah,
That's what that was. All right, top right-hand corner, ladies and gentlemen, up 1-0, looking to advance to GSL Code as Season 2 is your blue Zerg. From Alpha X, he is RAGNAROK.
And in the bottom left, his opponent, currently down 0-1 in this best of 3. Needs to win twice in a row if he wants to advance to GSL Code S. For Team GP, this is Prince.
And it would be a nice result here for Prince to get back into the GSL. It's, you know, that's definitely, I think that's the level where he is at, where you're still looking to make that run. You're still looking to get through the qualifiers, make it into the GSL, and then, you know, go from there. Because Prince, I think, is very much still developing. You see a lot of ideas there with the aggression. And this is the issue that we see with a lot of players. And this was an issue that Bunny had, that there was with Creator as well. And, of course, those two players have both bloomed and really found their stride. And I kind of saw it with Prince in that last game where, even though he was doing some very cool stuff and the ideas were there, it didn't really feel like it was unique play. It didn't feel like it was Prince's, you know, play style. It just felt kind of like, all right, well, I'm going to do the Glaive to Depths, and it's a 2-base all-in timing, and then the DTs are the follow-up, and then, oh, that doesn't work, so 3-base, +1 Blink Stalker. And even with those things, there are chances to vary them and to make them different. There just wasn't much of that.
And especially if you feel like you're playing somebody else's style, there's certain aspects of it that don't go quite as cleanly. Like maybe the building goes down a couple seconds later than you intend it to. Maybe you need to like balance your workers so that way you get like peak efficiency on the mining. Maybe that doesn't happen. Pathing can also be really important, making sure that you avoid all of the different like scouting overlords. Yeah, just kind of all of those different things add up. But I would agree with you. I mean, there's a lot of potential. There was a lot that went rather well for Prince if he's able to continue like honing those builds and really honing his process. Like he's got a lot of he's had a lot of success in general, like, don't get me wrong, but I think he's got a lot more that can be coming for him in the future. Seems like things are going to slow down just a little bit here in game number 2. Is going to open up with a Void Ray. Will be beneficial to one of those points, being able to take out some of those scouting overlords and take away a little bit of the map control from RAGNAROK here in the early onsets of game 2.
Absolutely. It's going to be the Stargate. So the Oracles will be coming out, and once again, we're seeing a player opt for the Void Ray first still. Again, on Glittering Ashes, I really don't mind it as much as on smaller maps, just because that extra build time is not going to really come into effect. And the Void Ray is still a good unit. It's just that the nerfs that were done to it were to make it a lot less viable for just getting out a ton of them really, really early, and that being able to snowball the game. It made the game very uninteractive, where suddenly it's like, all right, the Zerg is going to do this specific build to counter it, or else you're going to just get up into your tier 3 air units, and then from there, it's all the pressure was put on the Zerg, and I think I think the nerfs have done a good job of doing that. Of course, you see Prince still get one here, just going to try and snipe down the overlords, and the Oracle will also try and dive on into the third base. Ooh, this micros there and takes quite a bit of damage onto it. But it's going to be Robotics Facility and Twilight Council, so the expected transition is probably going to be the +1 Blade Stalkers.
Well, I think it's interesting here. There's no Forge along with this transition just yet, so it feels as if maybe there's something else up Prince's sleeve as he does throw down Charge almost immediately, and getting a Templar Archives behind it as well. So not going to opt for the upgrade just yet, and instead might just opt for a big timing attack with charge lots, because it doesn't matter if those charge lots hit with +1 additional damage, Titan, if there's just way too many of them for Ragnarok to even deal with.
Yeah, this is a really, really interesting choice here from Prince, and it's honestly, it's very cool, because you see there's going to be no gas at this third base. There is still gas mining at the natural, which is a little bit weird, because you see that Prince is starting to float upwards of 600 gas here. And especially when you're going with a charge lot based army, you're not really going to be losing that until, there we go, we're going to see the High Templar warped in, and that's going to be where the gas is spent on the Archons that are going to bolster this ground force.
Yeah, this is all starting to take shape here for the Protoss player. He's got a build in mind here. We just got done talking about how we wanted him to find something he felt comfortable with, and this is starting to feel maybe a little bit more up his alley in game number 2. Charge is going to finish up here in just a moment, as well as all of those warp gates, and now that's going to be 6 different units here that are going to come in with these Archons, and this is suddenly a lot of units that's going to be very difficult to deal with.
Yeah, Archons do have to get picked up, though, as the Warp Prism is getting low. Queen Folkspire. Oh, it's so close, and actually, all the Zealots get out. That is quite nice, as I believe it was a few Adepts that made their way into the third base. Got a few killed. Oh no, the drones just went down the main. Never mind. That was just the damage in the main. What am I talking about? You know, Titan, stop being confusing. Come on.
No, there's a lot happening there, so totally understandable here.
But look at this. Look at this, Rushi. It's an Immortal +1, a second Stargate, and also a carrier, because a fleet beacon was built. This is like, do you like having everything? Because Prince does.
Oh, yeah. Prince heard the phrase, you can't have your cake and eat it too, and asked why. Why can't I have my cake and eat it too? I can just have a little bit of everything, and I'm going to win the game anyways. So that's exactly what he wants to try and do, at least here in game number 2. But yeah, the carrier production is already coming out. I mean, he dug deep into his mind to remember, okay, what do Zerg players complain about? Like, what's considered OP in PvZ? And he went, oh, that's right, carriers. So carriers are going to be coming out 2x2, hurrah, hurrah, +1 air weapons as well. And it seems like this might end up being an okay response if we can get the carriers out once these mutas kind of show themselves on the opposite side of the map. I wouldn't be surprised to see Phoenix actually start taking their place on the production tab. But Stalkers are going to have to be the important part of this, at least for right now. Although here come the carriers to help defend just a little bit. Maybe it's just going to be carrier production. They're not even worrying about the Phoenix.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, a little bit subpar there for Prince, where you reveal the carriers this early. I mean, obviously Ragnarok did dive in and saw the starport anyway, so he will know that tech was coming. But it's just not ideal that this is revealed so quickly, that you're only on 3 bases and then you're going to the carriers. I mean, we're going to see Corruptors are now going to be built. And of course, there's going to be a strong ground force here for Prince. He has the Immortals that are added in, so Roaches aren't going to do that well. It definitely is a very, very interesting kind of eclectic mess of Protoss that Prince has assembled here. He's a few Adepts. He has, the Zealots. There's a single Sentry there. He's the one of his kind. And then the Archons and the Immortals. Here we go in attack. I mean, he did force the cancel on that 4th base, so Prince is not going to be able to get that on up. And behind this, Ragnarok, well, he's looking for a 5th.
Oh yeah, that is that could be a bold choice here. I mean, Prince is in a rather strong position. Granted, he is down a little bit on supplies with 154 to Ragnarok's 189, but that's not too far outside of the realm of margin of error. So, I mean, I think Ragnarok's still got to be very, very careful here. This army cannot be ignored or under-respected, as we are at 4 carriers. It looks like 4 carriers is going to be the amount, at least for now. What's the immortal count at? 3? That's actually pretty strong here, especially against that Roach Ravager army. The Corruptors are actually going to start puking all over this Nexus. That's going to be really difficult for Prince to deal with here. I think Shield Battery Overcharge is going to try and keep this alive for as long as possible, but that's not going to be nearly enough. That base is going to end up falling, and it's going to cost him, you know, very limited amount of Corruptors as well.
Yeah, and it's a nice job there by Ragnarok just to zone out these units. I mean, we're going to have to see as Prince is pushing across the map. He's at 172 supply. +1/+1 is done. Corruptors are just going to have to try, and they really can't commit on in while those Archons are alive. And this is the real struggle here with this army that Prince has kind of amassed here for Ragnarok, is that you want to dive in with the Corruptors, but the Archons are there. Their splash damage is quite massive. And, of course, your Ravagers, well, there are Immortals, and here we go. Bailey's rolling on in. Most of the shots, though, and most of the explosions are on the Archons, but the carriers are going down. I mean, the Void Ray is trying its best, but it's not quite enough. All the carriers are going to fall. The Archons soaking up so much damage, though. And Ragnarok is down to 144 supply. Suddenly, the Corruptors aren't as useful. And Prince, is he going to be able to push this to a win? 24 Roaches are the remax, but there's still 3 Immortals alive, and that's going to be GG.
Top left-hand corner of Berlingrad. Our blue Zerg player playing for Alpha X. This is Ragnarok.
And in the bottom right, being able to get a game back would be massive. He's able to make it into the GSL. Ladies and gentlemen, from Team GP, it's Prince.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Titan. Titan, this is the wrong place for Ragnarok's second base here.
You know, I was saying that Ragnarok has been aggressive lately, and honestly, he hasn't been. I was like, wow, this is pretty standard play for Ragnarok from what we've seen these past 4 games. This is more what I'm talking about. The proxy hatchery. He was doing this so much in GSL last year. In the last GSL, this was all he was doing, was proxy hatches, was being aggressive in the group stage, and I'm loving to see it. Prince, though, this is a great response so far, has looked to complete this wall. If it's not fully walled off, though, and it doesn't look like... Actually, maybe Ragnarok is going to complete this. He's going to be forced to the 3rd base location for his actual 2nd base. And we'll see if this is just going to be a cancel into an Evo chamber on the creep that's left over. I mean, the Zealot is already out, so I have to feel like this is just going to be canceled, right?
Oh, yeah. I can't see a scenario where this actually finishes and Ragnarok's able to benefit from it. He's probably more likely just going to cancel. Yeah, cancel almost immediately. Great use or great movement by the Zealot here prevents the additional unit from, or the additional building from being made. That one would have stuck around, but no, Ragnarok actually might have been across the map trying to defend a couple of his units in his main as well. So now, I mean, it kind of puts Ragnarok in an interesting position. He is supply blocked right now for just a brief moment. That is going to get cleaned up here now. The natural, as you said, is out at the 3rd base location. And gosh, like, where do we go? I mean, this is a nice delay on the Nexus. And I guess it is kind of a delay on everything. Really, there is no additional tech coming out here for Prince right now. So I guess Ragnarok's got to be feeling pretty okay with this choice so far.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're going to have 3 hatcheries pretty shortly, and there's not much that Prince is going to be able to do to slow it down. I do like this, though, pressing in with a Zealot and an Adept just to try and get some damage here. The Zergling's being brought over, though. Should be able to deal with it. The Queen out. We'll be able to push back that Adept. If it finishes the Shade, it doesn't. And Ragnarok is just going to be having to deal with this little bit of pressure as Prince is going into the Stargate at home. Obviously, wanting to kind of repeat what he did in that last game, it feels like, potentially. I'm not going to speak for Prince, you know, I'm going to say the maybe, probably, because this is a caster prediction. We always know that those goes terribly wrong. But the Stargate is out. Should see the Void Ray first to help clear up the Overlords, and there are 2 across the map. So, a pretty, I would say this opening has ended up resulting in being pretty even. The only advantage that RAGNAROK has really gotten is, of course, this very, very quick third hatchery.
And I mean, that's going to be kind of the equalizing factor here for sure. And now RAGNAROK is in a spot where, yeah, he's a bit behind, but really not by a whole lot. He has a overwhelming supply lead here, 5. Granted, Rushi, it's 5, but it is the 4-minute mark. So the fact that RAGNAROK was the one that did something a little cheeky early on and is now maintaining a supply lead, I mean, that's definitely noticeable. And he's almost cleaned up the difference between the probe and drone count. So now almost equalizing that out. That puts things in an interesting position. But look at this Titan. Prince wants to get one last resonating glaze. He remembers how game 1 went and that it was able to find some damage. It's just a matter of whether or not he can make it successful this time around.
Well, you know, after game 1, I guess, why not? Why not? This is going to be interesting to see how it goes. I'm just a little bit nervous, though. Luckily, it is with the 3rd Nexus, so it's not going to be like this all-in Glaive Adepts off 2 base. It will be more of a macro-oriented build with the Glaive Adepts to try and find some harassment damage, which I think is a lot better of a build, especially just with how good Zergs are at dealing with the Adept pressure. It's just kind of become natural for them to have a Roach Warren up and to have a good enough link count to be able to handle it.
Yeah, I do like the change up here, like as you said, the addition of the 3rd base alongside it does make this less of an all-in situation. Prince can bounce back from this if he needs to, but I can imagine that he's hoping that that's not the case. RAGNAROK with a great scout, though, sees those shades coming across the map here. His Roach Warren is just about done, so he just has to hang on for a little bit of time before he's going to have a more sturdy way of defending against these units. What's the lane count at right now? That's a sizable amount of lings, and he gets a really decent surround on these units, but Resonating Glaives cannot be ignored. But look at this, he just absolutely obliterates every single Adept here. Maybe 1 gets away. 1 is not going to make a sizable army force here at Titan. That is an absolute shutdown on every level.
Yeah, this is about as bad as it can get for Prince. You have the robotics facility on the way. You're just going to have to warp in more Adepts, though, and hope that you can delay long enough that you'll be able to survive. But again, the thing is, RAGNAROK right now is just going to be droning up on the 3 hatcheries, going to be adding on Ravagers and Roaches. And for Prince, now you kind of got to sit back. Now you're going to have to wait. It's up to the Zerg to just kind of do whatever they want because that attack did so little damage. That's going to be additional gases going down here for RAGNAROK. He's sitting at 55 workers right now, not the highest worker count. It still has yet to saturate that 3rd base completely, but we're going to see what the plan is. Is it going to be a massive swell of units to try and punish, or will it just be that 4th and continued macro here from RAGNAROK?
Oh. Well, right now it does seem to be a 4th base from RAGNAROK, but Prince, he's not done with this aggression yet. He wants to go in once again. He believes in the heart of the cards here, Titan. He believes in this build and wants to try and make it work. He does at least get the 4th canceled, so that is something better than nothing. But Robotics Bay as the follow-up here, this feels like a really, really bold choice for somebody who has had their initial aggression squashed not once, but twice. Glial Reconstitution's about halfway done, and I wouldn't be surprised to see RAGNAROK, now that his 4th base has been delayed a little bit, it wouldn't be surprising just to see all of these units start to stack up and move across the map just to take care of his opponent once and for all.
Absolutely, as disruptors are on the way, additional gateways being placed down here for Prince. He is just going to be on this 3-base economy. The more Prism goes into the main, but it's not able to commit on in. And Rushi, I mean, it definitely does feel bad because there's 2 games in a row where Prince has gone for these Glaive Adepts, and 2 games in a row where it has really just not worked at all. RAGNAROK just showing how solid he is with this defense, with reading the play, as even the Warp Prism in the main gets shut down. We are not going to see the Adepts finish that shade, and they should all get cleaned up by this Roach Ravager. And losing this many units now, I mean, it's not every day that you see a game where the Zerg has lost almost 2 times less than the Protoss. I mean, RAGNAROK hasn't lost any gas. He's kept all of his Roaches and Ravagers alive. It's just Prince right now is so far behind.
Yeah, and despite the fact that there are disruptors on the field, yeah, those are a good comeback mechanic. I mean, you need like 3, 4, 5 life-changing disruption novas to land here, and he's only got 3. So he'd have to do it twice in 2 different volleys. That would be a miracle from all angles that you could even look at it. And +1 melee is going to be finishing up. That's going to make those Zerglings a lot more deadly as they come pouring on in. And they're going to start knocking down the debris. RAGNAROK wants to be able to engage from every possible angle. And it seems like he might get his wish here. Oh, look at those disruptors just kind of hanging off to the right-hand side. That's a lot of Banelings there that might come in and try to disrupt Prince's plans here, Titan.
Oh, yeah, it's waiting for centrifugal hooks, right, RAGNAROK. Oh, he's setting it up. He knows he wants to go for the counterattack with those Banes. Prince is going to try and move out here. He doesn't even have +1, though, and I think that's really brutal not having that extra damage on those Stalkers. Here we go. Baneling's going to roll on through. There's immediately a warp in into the wall, but that single Adept is not going to be enough, and now it's going to be that mineral line that is under threat. A good force field, though. Warpins as well, and hey, Prince, that's very well done, but more Banelings into the 3rd! And that is just brutal. 20 probes go down. This is a game where Prince was already behind. You have RAGNAROK on 4 bases, 79 drones, also getting upgrades, and now suddenly Prince has to go all in. There's no way you can replenish that many probe losses. You have the 5 disruptors, and you have to hope and pray that you're going to be able to find good enough hits to turn this into a victory, that your Blink Micro is good enough. Prince, he is banking everything on this attack.
Yeah, this is the whole kit and caboodle right here for the Protoss player. He does have enough disruptors. He's got 5, so he can, if microed well, deal with this main army, but there are Lings out across the map as well, causing their own kind of chaos. A giant amount of Banelings do get picked off by a disruptor shot. That is a good start here, but he's got to be able to turn it into more. No. RAGNAROK, though, getting into the belly of this army. Lings come streaming in from the backside. It's all over for the Protoss player, and RAGNAROK advances into GSL Code S. Well done. 2-1 victory over his opponent.